The streets of Atlanta were buzzing the moment the court ruling dropped online. Social media exploded. News crews swarmed the courthouse. Fans shared their shock and disbelief. And in the middle of it all, Kirk Frost walked out looking completely defeated. The man who once flaunted his wealth, flexed in studios, and acted like the boss of everything in his world suddenly had nothing. Gone were the days of boasting about cars, properties, and control. According to the judge, Rasheeda had officially won $300 million in spousal support, a number that left Kirk financially crippled and emotionally humiliated in front of the entire public. Cameras captured the disbelief on his face, the slight slump in his shoulders, and the shock that a single signature could undo so much power. Meanwhile, Rasheeda walked away like a woman who had survived decades of silent battles, who had rebuilt her life, while Kirk thought he was in control. She stepped into her sleek black SUV calmly, composed, and victorious. Her eyes held no anger, no hatred, just a quiet sense of justice served. For years, fans had debated her choices, wondering if she had stayed too long or tolerated too much, but at that moment, it was clear. Rasheeda had endured emotional warfare that no public audience ever fully understood. She had been patient, calculated, and strategic, and now the world finally saw the payoff. Fans flooded social media with praise, saying, "She deserved every bit of this," while others shook their heads at the irony. The man who once boasted about controlling all finances had lost it all. What really drove Rasheeda to take this level of action wasn't just infidelity or public humiliation, insiders claim. It wasn't the Jasmine storyline, the side children, or the blatant cheating captured on cameras for love and hip-hop. This was deeper. This was a systematic, years-long erosion of trust, respect, and security. A humiliation she endured quietly until the moment she filed her legal claim. And the internet quickly realized this wasn't just a divorce. This was payback. The history between Rasheeda and Kirk shows just how calculated her approach had been. When Kirk first entered her life, he wasn't the villain the world knows today. He was charismatic, supportive, and seemed like a true partner. He hyped her dreams, encouraged her music, and positioned himself as the rock in her life. Rasheeda, young and hopeful, believed him, trusted him, and allowed him to manage her finances and career. She didn't see that Kirk wasn't creating a partnership. He was creating control. The first warning signs were subtle: disagreements about money, guilt trips when she wanted independence, and silent treatments whenever she questioned decisions. She assumed it was typical marital friction, not realizing it was manipulation disguised as love. The cheating didn't begin years later. It started almost immediately, subtle at first, and then grew blatant and reckless. Rasheeda discovered strange messages, odd receipts, and unexplained absences. Every time she confronted him, Kirk would gaslight her, twist the story, or accuse her of being insecure, dramatic, or paranoid. Slowly, Rasheeda stopped trusting her instincts because Kirk's manipulation made her doubt herself. By the time cameras began rolling for Love and Hip Hop, she was already living through a silent storm. The public only ever saw fragments of the chaos. The Jasmine storyline was just the tip of the iceberg. Jasmine entering the picture wasn't a surprise to Rasheeda. She had suspected infidelity for years. The breaking point wasn't just the cheating, it was the disrespect. Kirk lied to Jasmine, lied to Rasheeda, lied to their friends, and lied to the public. He denied responsibility for his actions, humiliated Rasheeda on television, and treated her grace as a guarantee that she would remain loyal no matter what. Forgiveness became a weapon, and over time, Rasheeda realized that loyalty alone wasn't enough to save her marriage. It was slowly killing her spirit. The true emotional turning point came when Rasheeda overheard Kirk telling a friend, "Rasheeda ain't going anywhere. She's too scared to start over." Hearing those words shattered her. It wasn't an affair or a public embarrassment that hurt her. It was the revelation that for 25 years, he underestimated her, dismissed her, and believed she lacked the courage to claim her own life. But instead of confronting him in the moment, Rasheeda became strategic. She began documenting, saving receipts, tracking money, and monitoring his patterns. She studied him the way he had long studied her vulnerabilities. Rasheeda soon uncovered the financial truth behind Kirk's lies. He had been siphoning money from joint accounts, paying for secret apartments, private trips, and women, all under fake LLCs. He assumed she would never discover it. Instead, Rasheeda quietly built her own financial security, separate accounts, new LLCs, personal investments, and trademarks. She prepared for the day she could stand alone. The moment she realized she no longer depended on him was the moment Kirk's downfall was sealed. When Rasheeda finally entered her lawyer's office, she wasn't a betrayed spouse seeking mercy. She was a strategist with years of evidence, receipts, bank statements, emails, and other records exposing Kirk's hidden financial dealings. Her legal team assembled every detail, uncovering not just infidelity, but financial misconduct, asset misappropriation, and tax mismanagement. Kirk was blindsided, and when the $300 million spousal support figure was presented, it wasn't about greed. It was about years of deception, stolen trust, and unaccounted for earnings. The shockwaves didn't stop there. Jasmine, the woman at the center of public drama, reached out to provide proof that Kirk had been paying her secretly through business accounts. Bank routing numbers, payment histories, and receipts were handed to Rasheeda's team, exposing fraud and misuse of marital assets. And then there was the Miami property, a secret apartment, cash paid, leased under a woman's name, with a child who bore an uncanny resemblance to Kirk. Every detail confirmed years of betrayal. Rasheeda didn't exploit the child. She leveraged the truth legally. Kirk tried desperately to spin the narrative, claiming Rasheeda overreacted, that Jasmine caused the conflict, and that the $300 million was exaggerated. But Rasheeda's legal team meticulously reconstructed decades of transactions, exposing hidden apartments, secret business investments, and money spent from her accounts without consent. Kirk had treated her earnings as his own and underestimated her intelligence and resilience. The case wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about decades of financial and emotional abuse. Rasheeda didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply executed her plan, proving that patience, preparation, and strategic action could overcome years of deceit. Kirk Frost, once confident in his control, was exposed as vulnerable, reckless, and bankrupt. The $300 million judgment wasn't just a victory. It was justice, long overdue, and a reminder to the world that those who underestimate their partners do so at their own peril. Atlanta watched, the internet buzzed, and the love and hip-hop universe reeled. Rasheeda's triumph wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was hers, proving resilience, and walking out stronger, smarter, and financially untouchable. Kirk Frost's empire crumbled, but Rasheeda's legacy as a woman who overcame betrayal, manipulation, and deception had just begun. The city of Atlanta was buzzing the moment the latest court documents went public. Social media erupted, news outlets scrambled, and the public couldn't believe the details they were seeing about Kirk Frost and Rasheeda's 25-year marriage. What had seemed like a normal reality TV drama suddenly escalated into something far larger. Kirk, once confident in his control over money, business, and even his public image, was now exposed in ways no one expected. What was worse, the calm facade he tried to maintain for decades was crumbling right in front of the world's eyes. For years, Rasheeda had been underestimated. People assumed she stayed in the marriage for too long, that she tolerated too much, that she lacked the courage to walk away. But they never understood the emotional and financial manipulation she endured behind closed doors. Kirk wasn't just unfaithful. He was deceptive, controlling, and clever in a way that ensured most people never saw the full picture. He created secret accounts, managed phantom companies, and siphoned money from their shared assets without Rasheeda knowing. The revelation that Kirk had been diverting profits from joint businesses to secret accounts that only he could access shocked everyone. He didn't just cheat emotionally, he cheated financially, professionally, and strategically. When these details came out during mediation, his reaction was explosive. He slammed his hands on the table, shouting about privacy violations, about boundaries, about the sanctity of marriage. He thought he could intimidate her. But Rasheeda didn't raise her voice. She didn't beg or cry. Calmly, she slid a stack of bank statements across the table and said, "You spent my money on your girlfriends. Now you're going to pay me back." That was the moment Kirk realized she wasn't bluffing. She wasn't negotiating. She wasn't acting out of emotion. She was done. And that quiet strength, that preparation, was something he had never accounted for. Desperate, Kirk tried one last maneuver. He demanded a forensic audit of Rasheeda's business accounts, hoping to expose hidden funds or inconsistencies that he could exploit. He thought this would turn the tables, give him leverage, allow him to regain control. But instead, it backfired spectacularly. The audit revealed something he never anticipated. Rasheeda's businesses were thriving. Pressed ATL was pulling in millions, Frost Bistro was expanding, and her brand, endorsements, and streaming numbers were soaring. She was not only self-sufficient, but financially untouchable. The irony? Kirk's demand for the audit actually strengthened her case. Thanks to Georgia's marital law, any discovery he forced also became part of her claim. He had inadvertently expanded her claim by trying to find leverage. And then came the bombshell no one saw coming. Rasheeda's meticulous record-keeping uncovered a secret trust fund Kirk had set up years ago for a side relationship. Not Jasmine, not the Miami child, but a third woman who had been secretly supported by him using marital funds. The trust covered housing, relocation costs, childcare, and even monthly living expenses. When Rasheeda's attorneys confronted Kirk with the documents, he turned pale. The evidence was undeniable. Premeditated deception. The judge immediately froze the trust. Rasheeda remained composed, her calmness a stark contrast to Kirk's panic. Every ounce of humiliation he thought he could control had turned back on him. If the trust wasn't enough to destabilize him, the final folder delivered a new shock, a paternity test revealing a fourth child. A child whose existence Kirk had kept secret for years, whose mother had remained anonymous until Rasheeda obtained the proof. The results were 99.98% accurate. For the first time in 25 years, Kirk understood the full scope of Rasheeda's strategy. She had planned every step, accounted for every deception, and she held the ultimate leverage: knowledge. The public reaction was instantaneous. Atlanta's entertainment world exploded. Gossip blogs crashed under the traffic. Social media was flooded with headlines about Kirk Frost's secret children, hidden funds, and decades of manipulation. People were shocked by the sheer scope of deception, but fans rallied behind Rasheeda. They praised her strategic patience and recognized her courage in quietly reclaiming what was rightfully hers. Meanwhile, Kirk's image and influence began to crumble almost immediately. Endorsements were canceled. Investors withdrew. Business partnerships were paused. Frost Bistro and Pressed ATL, once his empires, now hung in the balance under the scrutiny of the court. Kirk tried to spin the narrative online. He released a poorly thought-out Instagram video claiming the media had misrepresented the situation and that he still wanted to fight for his marriage. But the public wasn't buying it. Comments flooded with ridicule, memes spread like wildfire, and he was forced to delete the post within minutes. His attempts to maintain control were futile. The damage was irreversible. The court had already frozen all his accounts, including those he thought were safe and inaccessible. He was bankrupt, legally and publicly, humiliated on every front. Rasheeda didn't stop there. She filed for majority ownership of their joint businesses, including Pressed ATL and Frost Bistro. She argued that Kirk's actions, mismanaging funds, hiding assets, and engaging in infidelity, jeopardized her livelihood. The court sided with her. Overnight, she transitioned from co-owner to majority owner, while Kirk was demoted from leader to subordinate in the very businesses he once dominated. Images of him leaving the courthouse, head down and shoulders slumped, became iconic. Bloggers captioned the photos with phrases like, "When cheating stops being cute," and "karma with interest." Rasheeda's composure outside the courthouse was equally striking. When approached by paparazzi, she didn't gloat or lash out. She simply said, "I'm choosing peace. Everything else is in God's hands." That quiet confidence became the defining image of her victory. Meanwhile, Kirk's personal and professional network began to fracture. Friends distanced themselves. Associates questioned their loyalty. Investors hesitated to engage with him, fearing the public backlash and potential legal ramifications. Just when it seemed Rasheeda's legal victories were complete, she revealed one final secret: the publishing rights to her music catalog. Decades-old contracts showed Kirk had manipulated her into signing deals that transferred her intellectual property under his control. These predatory contracts had allowed him to leverage her earnings while publicly humiliating her. Rasheeda demanded the full reversion of her rights. The judge agreed.